That was a very, very positive start to the meeting, and particularly reminded me of some of my colleagues in Parliament who are unfunny people trying to be funny, they should not do it. I won't mention names, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm aware that for the MPs in this audience, we may be going to vote very shortly, so I was going to bring David next, but if I leave you, David, we can come back. Can I move on now to Rita Payne, who's the chair of the CGA?
Hello, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for inviting me to speak. Now, we've got experts here on the panel, and I can't pretend to be an expert. I've been talking very much from my position for a long time as an observer and a member of the media. Most of my dealings with the Maldives developments actually occurred while in my previous incarnation as Asia editor with BBC World TV News. So I'll just touch on a few points. For example, I'll talk about the fight for democracy, Gayoom under pressure, the celebration, the challenges, the disillusionment, and the way forward. Because that's, you can almost see that you can divide the whole story into segments like this. Now, I was just looking through my emails and from the past, and I came across several that I received from the current president when he was in opposition. And the dates, I'll just read two of them, and they sort of really encapsulate what was happening at that time in the fight for democracy. So there is one that I found which was sent on the 8th of September 2005. And he said, "Dear Rita, as we discussed over the telephone, the coming Friday, Saturday coincides with the 12th, 13th of last year, when the government conducted mass arrests. In the come-up of the first anniversary of those events, the government is getting increasingly jittery and has in recent days arrested up to 24 pro-democracy activists. They were arrested for what the government has termed as unlawful assembly. The government has also charged the editor of the only independent daily of the Maldives. The paper is called Minivan, Independent. Pro-democracy activists seem to be getting geared up for a peaceful demonstration. We feel that this demo will be big. Meanwhile, the MDP says that they're going to file a case against the Chief of Police for obstructing party activities. All this is going on in the absence of Gayoom. He has been away for more than 10 days, and no one knows when he's coming. The town is buzzing with rumors to the effect that he will not come back. One thing is certain, he is too scared to come back until the anniversary is over. Thank you and best regards." Then the next email that I noted was written on the 23rd of July 2006. And this is when Mohammed Nasheed was obviously under house arrest. And he said, "Hello Rita, this I know will probably have nothing to do with you, but it's extremely annoying not to be able to see the BBC while Lebanon is being bombed and you yourself are under house arrest in February. There is some commercial argument going on, and it looks as though we will not be able to see the BBC until the end of the year. But I do not think this is purely commercial. The company that seems to have the agreement with the BBC but has no customers is owned by Gayoom's long-term friend. So I can't understand why the BBC should give distribution rights to someone who is not distributing it. Is there any way you can help? This little news story, I think, will give a good representation of what is happening." Now, what's quite interesting is when Her Excellency as well was in opposition, they were very, very active, and they would ring almost every other day to the extent that, we would say, but really, there are other things happening in other countries. The Maldives isn't the only country. But that shows the passion and the commitment, and they went through at the end. And then we come to the time when Gayoom steadily came under pressure. And as again, the High Commissioner has mentioned, Adam Minot, who's here of the BBC, he conducted another what was considered a pivotal interview with President Gayoom. We actually questioned his human rights record, and Adam hopefully will be able to say more. But according, I was talking to the High Commissioner some time ago, and she said this was significant because for the first time, the people were able to see Gayoom, in a different light. Because until then, he would present this whole aura of being an aristocracy, very grand, very remote, and suddenly people saw as human with flaws. And then we moved on to the celebration. And I was at a conference in Nanjing at the time, and then I had never thought this would happen, because we've been seeing activists in so many countries never come to power, and I noticed he'd been elected, so I couldn't help just sending off a little email and say, congratulations, I never thought you would be president. And he sent a quick one back, and this was on the 2nd of February 2008, saying, thanks a lot, Rita, would like to see you in Maldives, and so on. So he was there was celebration, he was seen as a hero, he made a pledge to make the Maldives carbon neutral by 2020. I was at Chogam and again, he made a big impact. The Copenhagen summit as well, he pushed climate change, pushed for action, and he also understands the media. You know, he held the Underwater Cabinet Summit. He inspired Nepal to hold a cabinet meeting on Everest. He personally installed solar panels recently on the roof of the presidential palace. And then, of course, there was, again, he was hailed, if you remember, as another Obama. And as Obama's facing a decline in popularity, and unfortunately with such high expectations that now people want quick results, and there is some form of disillusionment. So of course the challenges, again, I won't repeat, but we already know. First of all, there was the economy, inherited debt, and then we've got the gridlock in Parliament, we've got, you know, the judiciary, you know, totally inexperienced, untrained people at the moment, not quite ready for it, and then of course, again, as you mentioned, the threat of extremism. Now what was quite interesting is from that early euphoria, then there came, as I mentioned, deep despair, disappointment for various reasons. Now this could be justified or not, but as an observer this was quite interesting. And I'll just again quickly read out the high points of an email we received from a professional, a young professional woman in the Maldives. And she sent you know, an email saying consultancy jobs are getting harder and harder, especially with large foreign corporations coming in. They hire their own people, and the whole procurement process is not being very transparent. We are trying to be creative and change the current situation in order to survive. Then she says, I wish this government would concentrate on strategies to support local businesses and make as much commitment to creating jobs and ensuring the survival of local businesses as they do to promoting democracy. She talked about her husband being in the civil service and earning only 9,000 in the local currency, while you know, a cousin of hers who works close to the president is earning, you know, well over 3 times more. So she says, you know, so now it shows that not everybody is equal. Democracy leaves a bitter taste in my mouth when there is so much discrepancy. I'm fed up with politics and the efforts and the money this government spends painting themselves as the best thing since sliced bread. Reminds me of Guyon's tactics. It's embarrassing. There's cronyism. There seems to be a repeat of the old days, is basically what she's saying. And she was saying democracy, we live in an Orwellian world. In an Orwellian world, it's so surreal. I have lost track of all the appointees and advisors and consultants. It makes me physically sick in my stomach. So here's disillusionment. Now, obviously, there could be various reasons, one can't account for it. So, as the High Commissioner again said, you don't want to see all doom, you don't want to see all gloom. It does appear as though, you know, the very things that the President had initiated, ways of acting where he didn't want vindictiveness. He didn't want to be seen as, you know, taking his revenge on Gayoom. So he let him be, but unfortunately, you know, Gayoom, instead of disappearing quietly into a corner, shows he still wants to fight back, still wants to be in power. And of course, then with that, again, to prevent a dictatorship, you know, he moved, you know, more powers to the executive, and now he finds him marginalized. So the way forward, again, hopefully there are many more, and I'm sure politicians will be able to say what we can do. But I was talking to someone at the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, because I think that is one of the many bodies, the UN, who can help, or which can help Maldives at this stage. And yet apparently when the CPA went to visit Maldives recently, their main message was to parliamentarians, please talk to each other, have dialogue. But the concern that they found, they detected, is the fact that, you know, as again the Commissioner mentioned, people are on the old mindset, they're still thinking in the old ways, and if you are trying to go forward over democracy, it's proving an uphill battle. So I'll pass you on to my colleagues. Thank you.